We're going to actually a very exciting panel. Micha, he was on a Linqto Learn, an amazing, so a lot of you will not know this. And I didn't know a lot, but he was on a Linqto Learn event, and we learned so much. And so he gracefully accepted to come back. You're based in San Francisco, traveling all over the world, building something quite phenomenal. And every time we share anything on social media about what Micha does, the number of people that get engaged is pretty amazing. So it does get a little bit technical what you do, complicated. Help us break that down a little bit. But first, by starting introducing yourself and where you've come from and what you're doing. And as we wait for Kerry, who's been here before, and Irene, who's been here before too. So start with that whilst we wait for them.
Excellent. Well, thank you first for inviting me. I'm super happy to be here. Actually, have a lot of friends in the industry I know for many, many years. So it's actually great to be able to see them again, and great to be here to share a little bit of my story and what I know with you about this fantastic industry, which is actually Web3 and blockchain and crypto. Just to give you a little snippet of what I do at Nodle, which is the name of the company, and it's more than a company, it's actually an ecosystem. We have a mission to enable and to help billions of people to connect to trillions of things. And the reason why we do that is because we believe that we can build an infrastructure for abundance. And what does that mean? It means that when you have an ecosystem that helps data liquidity to help access a lot of various sources of information, basically you can create services, you can have businesses use these services, and that creates a lot of value, which is actually great for the people who participate in the ecosystem. And that's also thanks to the new incentives and this new ecosystem that is possible with Web3 and blockchain. And we do that with something that we all have with us, which is the smartphone. And I will tell you a little bit of my story on how I came to build this company and this ecosystem. I actually moved to California 11 years ago and created a company that was called Open Garden, where we were enabling people with their smartphone to share access to the internet with their other devices like tablets or computers. And we were enabling, when you were in a group of people, to actually share the bandwidth among all these smartphones so you get a better efficiency to access the internet or more speed. And that led me to build a product that everyone was asking for, leveraging that technology, which was a messaging app called FireChat. And we built that messaging app initially for Burning Man, because in 2012, it was my first Burning Man, and when you were arriving in the middle of the desert in Black Rock City, you had actually no connection. It was very hard to find anyone or to share information. And so we built this messaging app, and what happened was actually unexpected. It was enabling people to share information when there is no network, no access. And in September of 2014, I was actually landing in Hong Kong for spending 24 hours, and later a week, and ended up being 10 days actually. And over the night, I realized that 100,000 people had installed this app, and I was wondering what's happening. We are #1 in all the stores. And I was having dinner with a friend, and he was keeping on telling me, oh, you're #3. Oh, now you're #1. And in the morning, basically I sent some screenshots to one of my engineers who speak Chinese, and he said, oh, Micha, the students are organizing the revolution. And I happened to be in Hong Kong during the Umbrella Revolution when, during that week, 500,000 people installed the app in the city of Hong Kong to actually organize the revolution. And it was quite a live event. I realized something which was a dream technology that I was building, actually working live and changing and helping people. And that was really impactful. And that's how this idea actually of Nodle and what we are building now sparked, because everywhere I was going in the city, I was having notifications of FireChat user nearby. And I realized that you can really leverage what I call the smartphone infrastructure to build networks and more today, actually enable a network which we have other people build apps on top of it, and that's what we are building. So happy to tell you more and to also tell you about Web3.
Thank you so much, Micha. At least that gives us good context about the technology that is building and the mass adoption of it. But before we go to the Q&A and the moderation, I wanted to acknowledge, you may not know this, but Irene Ramsay works with me. She's a director of strategy with me in Linqto. None of this would have happened without her assistance. Okay. And she was, yes. When we talk about corporate culture, we talk about team building. We've got 4 or 5 people who are in San Francisco right now helping to manage the social. They've been up all night because we started in a time zone that for them was midnight, and they've been up yesterday all night and today all night. Irene's been up for hours and hours and hours assisting and managing and making all of this stuff happen. We've taken her away from her tennis. She's a competitive tennis player. We've taken her away from her opportunity to ski. We've taken away the opportunity for her to have some downtime. But this is what it takes, right? So this is what it takes for a company to work and work efficiently. So when you see her helping you get on the bus or manage your arrangements or fix your room or all of these things, it's a dedication for the team support. We uplift and help support each other. So a round of applause.
Thank you.
Yeah, keeping in mind that her expertise is private equity, journalism. She's worked with startup companies.
It's not.
She's experienced on the blockchain, but she helps us do this. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. So we're here to talk about decentralizing the web and how now is a chance to reimagine and rebuild with fresh principles, kind of achieving a new sort of freedom. But what does this actually fucking mean, really? And how do we actually get there? And what is the process? And do we actually care? And why do we care? So I say that because we've been promised all of this before in Web 1. So we welcome Micha Benoliel and Kerry Miller. Kerry is co-founder and general partner at Overton Venture Capital, a VC with a sweet spot of marketplaces and next-generation consumer brands. In her free time, and I honestly don't know how she has any, she's also co-founded a medical tech startup called Spark. And in a previous life, you were at Goldman's and also in management consultancy. I was trying to think of some words to describe to you, and like my first word was an overachiever, but I'm going to correct that and say you're an inspiration.
Thank you.
Very good. Micha, I've known you for some time. I've worked with you, and I would describe him as the godfather of mesh networking. And I would like you, I know you've given a little bit of background, but I would like you to go a little bit further as to how and why you decided to go into this movement, this freedom movement.
So, I mean, like I explained before, I think back in 2014 when basically this event happened, it was really the application of decentralization that was happening actually live. And I think what we are living now with blockchain and crypto is bringing that to a complete other level. Mm-hmm. One of the problems basically you can solve with decentralization, blockchain, and crypto is actually you can create now an incentive for people to participate and help you build this infrastructure. And that's a big difference in Web3, where basically people own a piece of what you are building and are going to benefit from this infrastructure or this ecosystem growing from day one. And I think it's one of the major changes that we can see happening now with Web3 compared to what we had in Web 2 or in Web 1. Yeah.
Can you go a little bit into the history of Web 1, Web 2, Web 3 and define those movements?
Yes, so Web 1, if you remember when you were accessing the internet for the first time and searching for information, basically Web 1 is about reading information. So you can access that information through your web browser, and the companies that were big in Web 1 were companies like Yahoo, the beginning of Google, and basically it was all about consuming and reading information. Web 2 is the big companies that we all know today, so platforms like Facebook, Instagram, platform like YouTube, where you not only access content and consume content, but you basically also create content. And unfortunately, this content that you create is very often owned by this platform. And Web3 is, you can still access the content, read content, you can create content, but this time you can also own the content or own a share of the platform and the protocols that are basically out there. And that's the big difference with Web3.
Kerry, could you please go into a little background as to why you wanted to move into this movement? And also, in your head, why you think our current system is broke?
So as kind of we went over some of the pre-questions, I was trying to think of was there a moment? For me, I really think it was an evolution. I've always been obsessed with consumer behavior. So for me, anytime a new technology comes out, I'm one of the first movers on it, mainly because I want to be there to see how my network of others come on and leverage those new technologies. And just in general, I think in decentralized finance, similarly, it was actually at Burning Man in, I think it was 2015, and I was mentioning about the camp that I was in, the founder of the camp. We had a really deep conversation about cryptocurrency. And at that point, I knew about Bitcoin and some of the buzz around it, but I hadn't ever taken a look at it. And it was through that conversation I learned that this individual not only was investing in Bitcoin, however, he also had a digital currency called Ven, which was a currency in outer space. And so I left that conversation thinking, I am so far behind. And now I'm actually starting to explore natural resources in space because of just thinking through if gold is the standard. We don't even know what's out there as far as precious assets and metals and other things. So that was kind of the first moment that I remembered walking away from a conversation thinking, I have to be in this world in some capacity. And then fast forward, I think it was probably this interactions of virtual and physical for me. I invested in a company called Stage It in the early 2000, I want to say 12, 13, where they were the first music platform that connected musicians to their fans virtually. So one of the co-founders was Jimmy Buffett, and they said, look, why not create intimate experiences where fans can have a conversation with these musicians and get to know them and hear music. And Stage It actually recently exited, but that was kind of my first play into what is that virtual and physical experience with our own interests. And then fast forward, a metaverse came to me several years ago, Topia, which was actually one of the platforms that Burning Man used for one of their virtual experiences. And that was the first time where I've already started feeling some Zoom fatigue. We were using it, we weren't in COVID yet, but I saw that there was an application outside of this two-dimensional, was through Topia. And 2 years ago, I brought actually our investor meeting to the metaverse. And from there, as an investor, you see it in every industry. When every industry comes to you for some application of something in DeFi, investors obviously see a lot of things before they go mass market. And so it's been clear for the last, I'd say, year or so that we were heading in this direction.
Thank you. My takeaway is that we're supposed to be at Burning Man.
And we were talking about it. It's interesting. I'm Burning Man regardless. I'm a conservative person. Y'all don't know me well enough to know my habits and vices, etc. I'm fairly conservative. And so when I say Burning Man, to those that are also conservative, they say, what? Some of the most profound conversations that it really gives you an escape to really push your thinking. And for me, some of those conversations, probably because I took time off from work and you're around other, having other thought-provoking conversations, that it has brought some of that out in the 2 times that I've been there.
So for me, at the moment, it feels like the golden era of imagination. It's a great time to be working in this industry. But Web3 and everyone, as we've experienced over the past 2 days, has their own definition of it. But this brave new world, supposedly free of monopolistic control, that promises so much. Are we up for it? Like, is this actually happening? Because we have been, so in 50 years of tech history, actually no decentralized movement has actually achieved it without some form of monopolistic control. So where are we at in this kind of journey? Let's be realistic. Give me an honest, realistic answer.
Well, I think it's already happening. I mean, if any of you have already been on platforms like OpenSea to purchase an NFT or to sell an NFT, you realize that the platform fee is like just a couple %. Mm-hmm. So if you compare that to what you pay when you pay for an application on a mobile phone to Google or to Apple, who keeps basically 1/3 of the money you pay, it's a big difference. Mm-hmm. So I think this is already happening, and it's going to generalize to more and more different domains, different industries, and I mean for the good of everyone, yeah. And the benefit also of anyone. So
put it in context of what you're doing at Nodle right now. How big is the opportunity that you're seeing?
I mean, in terms of opportunity, in the space where we are, I think we are really just at the beginning of Web3 and crypto. And the best way to explain it is if you take the number of how many crypto wallets you have out there, you can look at different studies. Some, I think 2 days ago you had the Andreessen Horowitz study that says you have 50 million active wallets in crypto. You look at other studies, they talk about 300 million crypto wallets. I still think this is a very, very tiny number. And I always compare it to the number of smartphones out there, which is 7 billion smartphones. So if you look at that gap, you realize that this industry is going to grow by 15 to 20-fold in the next 10, 15 years. So it's really, really, really tiny. We are really just at the beginning.
And Kerry, from your sort of like investor perspective, what opportunity are you seeing? What kind of like investor appetite are you seeing for decentralizing the web?
I mean, I think there's significant opportunity if you haven't been able to tell just from the threads of all the conversations. I'd say, the counter is in this decentralized environment, there is this push to allowing the creators to create. However, we do know the elephant in the room of Facebook, Meta, and Google and the massive players, and how realistic is it for us to tackle it when we already know they have such a head start. On the other side, and I think I mentioned this yesterday, yes, the push for decentralization is a grand view. However, my personal view is there's still a need for some governance, which is happening with the protocols of each of these projects. And so even though the goal is for decentralized systems, that also, on the flip side, can have consequences with freeloading and other things. And so every industry right now has some application of it. There's obviously so much incredible momentum. I hope those that are building, continue to stay afloat, and venture capitalists, especially, and now even the structuring of funds, as we know, we have several token funds in the room, and, the traditional financing paths with equity and SACE is now moving into tokens. So investors really have a different way to craft the world in the future, and I really hope that we can stay disciplined to continue for this path for good versus capitalism and other things that historically have leaped into and the internet was essentially created for what Web3 is now intending to do. And if we think about it, the time horizon between Web 1 and Web 2 was probably 10 years. And so we're just getting started in Web 3. And so we're in 2022, started in 2020, 2021. We're still at the first inning. So there's definitely time for those opportunities to evolve.
I want to say something about capitalism. I think so far it's the system that works the best. But the great thing with Web3 is you can actually really realize what I call liquid capitalism, meaning that every participant can have a say. Every participant can also generate revenues by participating in any ecosystem they like. And to touch on what you said before, what we do is Nodle. I think we have a great example of how this is possible. If you are not familiar with crypto, want to understand crypto for the first time, you can install our mobile app, which is called Nodle Cash. It takes 90 seconds. And what it does is it creates a wallet for you, but it also creates a node. And we like to say we are all nodes with our smartphones. And after a couple hours by running this on your smartphone, you're going to start to earn cryptocurrency. And that's all you need to do, and it's very simple. And as more app developers and businesses start using applications on this platform, you're also going to earn a share of the revenue that they generate by being the one building this infrastructure. So I invite you to do it. And if you are not familiar with crypto, I really recommend you should do it because it's a great way to learn and to become part of this Web3 movement. Yeah.
And did you share, and sorry because I was getting did you share like the application in the insurance industry on the kind of example of a stolen asset, et cetera, and why your technology is so powerful and has the potential to do good?
So the first application that is built on this network is the equivalent of what Apple does for Apple Find My or the Apple AirTag, but in a fully decentralized manner. And it is used for industrial applications. So the first big company to use it this year and to deploy the service on chain and to use it is an insurance company. And they install in vehicles beacons, and they use the crowd of their insured drivers and also the crowd of Nodle users to actually locate these vehicles in case they get stolen. And there are many applications in the supply chain industry and also, for example, I mean, the one I'm the most excited about is Rapid Courier because very soon you're going to have stickers that can be also labels with a Bluetooth radio, and I believe and I'm convinced that everything around us will have a wireless identity or microprocessor at some point. So, and we want to become the network for that, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, so if you see, like, as much as, yes, the decentralized, there's so much good that can be created. Gennaro's project, and I mean, I've been listening, you know, when I met him through Linqto at a dinner in Miami, probably about 6 months ago, and to see the evolution of naturally the people who have come on board to help him build something. And so if we really are identifying those leaders that we want to support, hopefully this is positioning the world in a better place, in a better position. And so it's up to us as well who come into this world to really read the white papers, really understand the protocols, the incentives that are being created through this. And because it's so early, these ideas are still working through their tokenomics. And so the thing that's so exciting for everyone in the room, we're still so early on so many of these projects. Bring your expertise, bring your thoughts to help these systems be structured in a way, because yes, it's decentralized. However, that protocol is really the governance mechanism. And the question that you ask is, as investors, were we excited? There's so many opportunities for governance. And so, and interoperability. And those are kind of the common threads I think you'll hear in the early stage space, is looking for the platforms that will be able to take that NFT or that token across platforms. And then also, how are we going to govern and make sure that the protocols are adhered to? So that's where I think in the VC space, I'm most excited, and that's where I'm looking for opportunities.
I want to kind of go back and touch a little bit on a word that we've been saying so much, which is community. But what does actually community mean? And we've been saying, you know, Web3 is about community. As humans, we are very tribal at heart. We all have different types of community. Jordan Dunn mentioned earlier his Rolex. I actually think that's a symbol of identification. People wear certain brands as symbols of identification. We have communities around religion. We have communities, Linqto is a community. What I'm trying to say is that community is not like a new concept, right? So philosophically speaking, we understand this. My challenge in this movement, and I'm playing a bit of devil's advocate here, is, you know, how are you going to achieve mass adoption? Obviously, you've mentioned Nodle Cash as like an incentive. But why should I care as like an average Joe? And yesterday in a panel on the economy of self, we were talking about this trade-off between convenience and privacy. I know people who would trade their privacy for a bagel, like, honestly. So my point is that how are we going to achieve mass adoption in this movement? Because that is the key barrier for me.
Well, I think it's the transition between Web 2 and Web 3. There are a lot of things that people are doing in Web 2, a lot of content, a lot of information they are giving up for free. Mm-hmm. And if you give them the same convenience that in Web 2, but now they're also getting paid or they are rewarded for participating, that's how the change is going to happen. And I think the most challenging today for the whole ecosystem in blockchain, because it comes from at the origin of blockchain is a very small community of very nerdy people who understand tech very well. It's going to be on how basically you create user interface that make it accessible for the largest number and very easily without friction. Mm-hmm. And once the industry matures, and it's happening right now, and it becomes so easy for anyone to actually use a service they were using in Web 2, but in a Web 3 environment where they also are incentivized, automatically people are going to shift. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's a process that's already happening and is only going to accelerate. I mean, I would love to ask people around here, how many of you actually left Facebook already or are intending to do it in the next year or two, or even 6 months? So so it's already 1/3 of the room here. So it's happening.
Mm-hmm. And Kerry, do you want to chip in there?
Yeah, I'm trying to think what to add there. I mean, for me, I think kind of from mass adoption, from the responsible side, the education, and I think we all heard that's a common thread of, I don't want mass adoption yet. You know, I think I talked about yesterday, I had a wallet stolen. It's a rite of passageway when you enter into the space. However, all my enthusiasm gets other people enthusiastic about it, and without having the proper education behind it, I don't want you coming on. Yeah. And so I'm spending a lot of my time behind this initiative, Meta Collective, DAO, where we're building a campus on the metaverse of, you know, how do we create a system for education to learn to earn, and that perpetual cycle that we can actually scale in a massive way to educate individuals that come on to Web3. So I'm kind of on actually, I don't want it to happen so fast unless we can figure it out. And the great news is, I think a lot of projects that I've talked to you all about is part of your projects is actually, that is the education side of things. And so for mass adoption, I want it to kind of slow down so we can get that right. Because, you know, and for some of us, we're dipping our toes in. For others, you know, that are making really quick, big bets, you know, carelessness can happen, so.
Thank you. So another question I have is that we talk about this movement in almost idealistically, like a utopia, right? And we talk about all the good things, but what are the unintended consequences? Are there any? What are the bad things?
Well, because it's new and it's such a new technology, you see already things happening. Like, I mean, I have a really bitter taste when I speak about it or think about it, but things like Terra and Luna last week. Yeah. You had that at the very early days of Ethereum with the first DAO. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a new nascent industry. So, yeah, it's normal. You're going to see these small crises or hacks happening. But I think the industry is going to get better and better, and we're going to see less and less of them. And the industry, I mean, this industry is going to take over Web 2. I mean, it's so obvious. There's no, I don't see any break for that, except maybe regulation and how regulation evolves in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, I would go back to what Jordan and Matthew's conversation also included, which is diversity. And I have to say, on our project right now, and I'll give a pitch for it, if you or any of your children want to get involved, we're right now, the 30 founding partners, we're bringing on the first community managers. Many Web3 projects have a community manager to manage Discord, which is the main communication vehicle for many projects, or Twitter Spaces. We said, let's have 30 community managers. We're calling them campus guides. And they're going to be the ones that, by the way, the best way to learn is to be part of a project. And so we're having 30 community managers. I mean, we have 2 women right now. And we've been proactively, like I've been targeting my network and others, and it continues to be white males. And it's baffling me because I have so many in my network who are diverse, and even in our project, we can't do it. So I'm just disappointed. I was on emails earlier just with the individual who's the manager of everything. Like, this is insane. So if you know anyone, by the way, that you want to educate about this space, it's a great project to be on. And what I also realized is we have, a Stanford MBA, several folks who have a few years of work experience. They're getting to be mentored by the 30 founding members. 12 of us are general partners of funds. We have some celebrities. So they're going to learn from us. And I said, you know what? I know some parents who want to get into this space. Why are the campus guides so age diversity and all that? And so we got to really, we say we're doing it, but we really got to expand our thinking around diversity, because I thought we were there and that we tackled it, but we haven't. So that's what, and then also that some of the conversations as well, the technologies in order to advance. And again, we're like in the early innings. We talked about making sure that everyone has technology to be able to navigate in this space. And as the technologies advance, I want to make sure that we're really opening this up to the world in a way that we're thinking about that as well. So that's kind of what keeps me up on the other side.
You actually preempted my next question, very conveniently. I was going to ask both of you, for those that really want to educate themselves in this arena, where would you direct them? What would you recommend that they read, or who they spoke to, or who they followed?
I mean, my first answer, and I tell everyone, appoint a digital bodyguard. Number one. And when people reach out to me of how to get into the space, after my wallet was stolen, I realized, oh my gosh, I'm one of the most educated in my network about this, and this could still happen to me. And I appointed one of my closest friends, Swan, who I talk about. She's my digital bodyguard. So before clicking on a link or doing anything. So that's number one, if you're going to get into this space. Also, go slow. Go slow. Like, the best way to learn is to be in it and to dip your toes in. And from there, if you couldn't tell, there's so many areas to invest in your time and your energy, different strategies. So take your time, see what resonates with you, whether it's NFTs or crypto or altcoins or stable coins or metaverse. Take your time, see what resonates based on your background, and go from there. And then if you want to get involved in everything, leverage your network. Hopefully in this room, you can tell there's some thought leaders. Go to them first if you're interested in an area and really get up to speed to see how to start. That's kind of where. And there's books and readings. I mean, if you want to get educated on what the blockchain is and technologies before it, I thought IBM had some incredible use cases that really dispel what blockchain technology is, because fundamentally, if you want to get into this space and understand it, I would start there. And then from there, understand a little bit about tokenomics. What does it mean? Really means how do the nodes communicate and incentivize the entire network, and start to kind of go from there. That's kind of where I try to steer my friends and family.
Thank you. Micha? Yeah.
Well, I think having a friend who is already well-versed in this space is the best way to learn, indeed. And then read the classics. I mean, read the first Bitcoin white paper. It's very actually accessible. And so far, I think Bitcoin is one of the most realized decentralized ecosystem out there. I mean, it's fully decentralized. It's up there. It works 24/7. And nobody is really doing controlling anything for it to work. So it's where every crypto project should basically aim to be at some point. Is decentralized to the point it can survive. I would say if the original team disappears, the ecosystem needs to survive and thrive. And so that's the goal for the industry.
Yeah, and on that point, I mean, great point. Read the original. Every project, read the white paper. I think it was Matthew that said, if it doesn't make sense, it probably doesn't make sense to anyone. Mm-hmm. Ask the questions. It's not because it's over your head. It actually just might not make sense, and might be bad behavior might happen from it. So read the white papers, get into the weeds.
I think we're running late on time, but we definitely have some time for some questions, right?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm going to do a shout out to a young lady that I met on several occasions, picking up on Kerry there. Doc Peace, if you haven't heard about Doc Peace, just Google her or LinkedIn her. Doc Peace has this beautiful ability to narrate and summarize beautifully very complicated topics. So take a look, and she has talked about NFTs and the web and the blockchain and everything like that. So that's a great starting point. And then you can read an IBM white paper. But
IBM, they're just videos. They're like 3-minute videos of like, this is a blockchain technology. And I kind of like, as I realized a lot of my investors come from very traditional real estate backgrounds. And I think y'all all know me, probably now know I have a lot of energy. Probably I come and want to share all of it. It can be overwhelming at times. So I started looking for ways of how could I just take it down a notch and simplify it. So hearing individuals explain it in really layman's terms, it was the make or break for a lot of my network.
And we'll tag her because she's great. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you, Kerry, Micha, Irene.